Welcome to part 2 of our 8450 The Mission review. This time we look at the parts that require CyberMaster, an extension of the plane and an entirely new thing. To access the relevant modules of the software, you need to install CyberMaster before the mission, and then we will see some UI elements that we did not see before. Again, I will put some clips of cutscenes at the end of the video. We already saw what the plane would do with the CyberMaster core in the simulator, but now we can see it in brick. The 3 touch sensors can trigger various functions, a landing and a takeoff program by default. The landing sequence works well for a top button, but the takeoff sequence doesn't work quite as well for the bottom button. The nose gear trips the sensor when you pick up the plane, but sometimes it triggers when you set the plane back down as well. We can, of course, work around the problem by assigning the takeoff sequence to the other top sensor, but the overall functionality seems underwhelming. Since the wings move together, putting one wing on each internal motor feels a bit wasteful, and the CyberMaster core can't quite hold them at the selected angle. Furthermore, the integration removes the handle on the back of the plane and makes swooshing more difficult. I maintain that LEGO should have built a different style of aircraft with more utility, but the plane ultimately makes up a minority of the content. The other model and module we can access with CyberMaster installed, the ATV and the control pod, have much more going on, combining things we saw in CyberMaster, the mission, and even Spybotics to some extent. 8450 calls this vehicle an ATV, but it's fundamentally just another tracked vehicle with sensors and attachments like the CyberMaster truck. The instructions, of course, have their fair share of oddities, but not much we haven't seen in previous CyberMaster or mission coverage, except maybe a few steps with multiple arrows. The model also uses these ball and socket joints in a fixed assembly, another thing we had not seen before. The ATV carries a hook in the back for a payload and a cab in the front for a driver. It has no other attachment options. Running the third motor forward or backward triggers a complicated series of levers that ejects either the payload or the driver, but even with a bit of modification, this did not work well in practice. The ejection mechanisms also block battery access to the point that 8450 provides instructions on how to change them. The story here doesn't make much sense again. Our ATV needs to safely deliver bombs to a work site, but the bombs are very fragile and not very well secured. They may take damage when we traverse rough terrain. We have a driver, but for whatever reason, he can't do much to smooth the ride. Ultimately, the bomb explodes if it takes too many hits, at which point our ATV ejects its payload and pilot. We can adjust the mission parameters through the map, the bomb, and the difficulty, though all of these affect the difficulty. Let's look at the map first. The software comes with 2 default maps, and it encourages us to make our own. Maps consist of a route with some obstacles that we have to lay out in our physical playing field. Each obstacle has a household item version and a Lego version, some of which need a surprisingly large number of parts. The bombs take damage when they swing enough to hit the rear touch sensor, and the short wheelbase of the ATV encourages swinging when it crests obstacles. We can carry either a small bomb or a big bomb. The lighter one with fewer degrees of freedom obviously hits less than the heavier one with more degrees of freedom. We can also change the number of hits that the bomb can take. The overall mission difficulty governs fuel consumption and the number of quote-unquote issues. The same shooter and Pac-Man issues that we encountered with the plane. At the highest difficulty, you basically have to set up a fuel depot along your route. The ATV refuels by pressing the top left touch sensor against the depot target. Unfortunately, the depot doesn't have enough weight for the task and often gets knocked over before the sensor can register for a sufficient amount of time. Interacting with the goalpost using the right touch sensor completes a run. We also had some trouble hitting this, but at least it has a ramp such that the weight of the ATV can hold it down. We get a score based on the overall level difficulty and the cleanness of the run. For example, decreasing the maximum bomb hits from 50 to 10 and reducing the actual number of hits taken increased our score from 2,500 to around 5,000. Completing a course on easy settings is straightforward enough, but I could see the challenge scaling well with the right settings, or perhaps becoming more annoying with more mini-games. Jay reported that the controls felt laggy, but I think it would help if we drove with a gamepad. They recommended it, rather than a keyboard. All the while, I kept thinking about a show involving drifting with a cup of water. Overall, I think the ATV module could offer a pretty compelling play experience if everything worked just a little bit better, from the ejection mechanism to the control finesse. With these old Lego hardware with software products, we spend a lot of time debugging issues, though some definitely arise from reviewing 20 years too late, rather than just doing the thing. I think Lego figured it out too, as they kind of stopped making these outside of Mindstorms for quite some time. On that note, this is the end of the video, so have a nice day.
You can hear this briefing at any time when you're next here by tapping the manual over here, like so. There are 10 steps to this briefing. I'll proceed through each of these, so you can see how to plan and execute a mission. There will be a pause between each. Your aim as mission controller is to assist Pilot Jack in transporting bombs to a new Technic City construction site, so they may be used to blow away sections of the planet's crust. Because of the strong winds, even though your mission is over, Jack will still be left out on the planet's surface waiting for a rescue plane. You see, the ATV is especially built to protect the driver. If the bomb explodes, the strengthened cockpit is ejected. With a bit of time and training, one day you may attain commander status. One day. Your task is to transport
Bombs,
ATV,
ATV, fuel. Okay, but let's go up here.
So those are bombs.
Bombs, okay.
But this is
That's
fuel.
fuel.
And we go to the right. That's the ATV.
ATV, okay.
Hmm.
Okay, okay, okay.